You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing politics this evening because we have as our guest State Senator Dan Rutherford. He, of course, ran for Secretary of State in 2006. It was a tough race, and he may be back. And we're taping this, we should say, on October 12th, the year 2008. You'll be seeing it sometime in the middle or late October. And people are already starting to talk about 2010 and who would be running for governor. And Senator Dan Rutherford is one of the people that people are talking about, so we'll find out if he is running for governor. We'll find out a little bit more about Obama, McCain, because this guy knew Obama. He overlapped with him for 6 years in the State House, for 2 years in the State Senate. So if you want to find out about corruption, if that interests you, like would the governor be indicted? That's our favorite topic and tease we always start out with. Is Barack Obama all he cracks up to be? Admittedly, Senator Rutherford may be a little bit biased because he is a Republican, but he was a colleague. So we'll get to the real nitty-gritty, perhaps, of Barack Obama. We'll find out maybe if there's things like a capital plan that should be being dealt with, and if it's not on the state level. So it's going to be an interesting show, and no matter where you are, whether you're downstate, upstate, whether you're out of the state, you want to watch this show because the kind of issues we talk about are of interest to everybody, whether you're thinking about national issues, state issues, city issues, county. This is really the core of what people spend most of their waking lives thinking about. They don't care about the Bears. They don't care about, Lindsay Lohan or whatever her name is. They care about Senator Dan Rutherford and what he has to say about national and state politics.
I'm thinking, Jeff, my gosh, as good in politics as you are, to go say something like that.
I mean, look, I don't want to raise expectations too high, Dan, for you, but we got to keep them busy.
All right.
Okay, seriously, more about our guest as we get into the show, but he is approaching his, this would be your 18th year?
16th year, actually.
Excuse me, 16th year
Right.
in the General Assembly. It was 8 years. You were elected in '92 to the House.
It was 10 years in the State House.
10 years in the State House.
Years, and I'm finishing up 6 years now.
Excuse me, okay.
In the Illinois State Senate.
You came in, it was the Fab Five that came into the Senate that year. You came into the State House. You may remember the Fab Five. Do you remember that?
That was, it was a long time ago.
It was a while ago, but two of the Fab Five are gone. Patrick Fitzgerald has returned to the private sector after leaving the State Senate.
Steve.
No, Patrick.
Well, Patrick wasn't in the...
He came in '92 in the Senate, yes. He was one, and unless we've gotten this wrong, he was one of the Fab Five. Steve Rauschenberger came in.
Steve Rauschenberger came in then too.
You didn't realize that
No. Was his last name Fitzgerald? I don't
Senator
think so.
Fitzgerald.
No. I'll come up with it in a minute, but no. Patrick Fitzgerald is the United States Attorney now.
Maybe I mean to see Fitzpatrick?
You're thinking of Pat O'Malley.
No, let me go back. I am right. Senator Peter Fitzgerald. Did I say Patrick?
You said Patrick.
He
is the United States Attorney.
I so apologize to both Patrick Fitzgerald, who is the U.S. Attorney, and to Peter Fitzgerald, who, of course, was elected as one of the Fab Five. Peter was in 1992. He went on to become a U.S. Senator.
Right.
He went on to return to the private sector. Apologies all around. And thank you for the correction.
No
so
problem.
much.
You're thinking of Pat O'Malley.
Pat O'Malley.
Pat
okay.
O'Malley, Chris Lausen, Dave Severson, and I don't know how many we got there.
Or no,
Peter actually was elected.
After the House.
Peter was elected in 1992 in the State House when I was. In fact, our freshman class, with all respect to the State Senate back then, the House is where it was really happening. 1992, our freshman class had Rod Blagojevich, Jan Schakowsky, Judy Biggert, Peter Roscom, Dan Rutherford, Al Salvi, Tom Cross, and many other talented individuals. And just that short list right there, we had quite a turnaround. Quite a big class.
I'm so glad I screwed that up because we otherwise might not have.
I got it on tape now, Jeff.
Anybody can go back and watch and find. What do we call that? The Fab 10 or something?
Well,
I think you took off 10 people or something.
Easily because.
And you forgot. I mean, of course, Dan Rutherford.
Oh, I hope I said that because I hope I said that. Well, see, part of the reason that happened was the new map took place. So 1992 was the first election following the census, so the new legislative map. And as far as a percentage turnover of change in the Illinois General Assembly, that was the largest in history. So there was more people in the General Assembly new as a percentage than there had ever been before.
Lots of turnover
exactly.
Because of the new map percentage.
A lot of new people came in.
All right. The thing is, getting back to that, all we wanted to go back to is scrolling forward. You were last on, I think, in 04, 05. it seemed like the Republicans were making a bit of a comeback. I think you picked up in '04, maybe one Senate seat, one House seat.
Yeah, I don't know about I don't recall the House, Jeff, but there was definitely one Senate seat that was picked up.
But it's gone backwards, and now you're at 67-51 in the House, not a veto-proof majority, but close. In the Senate, it is a veto-proof majority,
right.
37-22. In '06, as you know, the Senate, you lost 5 seats, the Republicans did. So you kind of approach this with, not you personally, but the party, and we ask this question so often, can the Republican Party in Illinois be revived? Because it is either dead, or so it seems to the pundits, or it is on life support. Senator Dan Rutherford, is it dead? Can it be revived?
No, it's not dead. Yes, it can be revived, and I don't think it's too much dissimilar to what happened in 1994. 1994, the Democratic Party, the same question was asked of them. Are they dead or are they on life support? They lost every single constitutional office, they lost the majority of the House, and they lost the majority of the Senate. And that pendulum swung. I think Illinois is not a blue state, and I don't think Illinois is a red state. Illinois is really more of a purple state, and I think we're going to see a correction coming.
It used to be back like in 1960.
Used to be what?
A purple state. I mean, wasn't that a big deal?
1980, it was a red state. Ronald Reagan carried supremely here, and we carried the United States Senate in 1980, and you look at what's happened in the nation.
Ronald Reagan carried Illinois. That's what happened.
That's what happened. He was
partly because of his roots in Illinois, and
partly
because of who Ronald Reagan was.
And no, partly because who the incumbent president of the United States was, Jimmy Carter, and where we were in America. See, the reason I need to focus.
Because you worked on the Reagan campaign in '80.
I was the executive director, right. I was the head of the Reagan staff executive director of Illinois for the Reagan campaign. But the reason that's important to reflect upon is the same thing in the nation, and the pendulum has swung. Right now, the Democrats have the control of the United States Congress, the United States Senate, and they may have the White House. Illinois,
and they have a veto-proof majority in the Senate.
They may. But if you look at Illinois, my belief is Illinois will rectify itself with regards to it, and I think we're going to go back to a purple state. We're going to have a mix of elected officials in 2010, Democrats and Republicans. I don't think you're going to have a slam-dunk Democratic majority. A part of it is who you present as your candidates.
You don't think you're going to have a slam-dunk? Wait, slow down a bit. You don't think we're going to have a slam-dunk
Democratic majority
in what?
2010.
In where?
Across the constitutional offices. I think that you are going to find that the public of Illinois will say we need to have a rectifying
some
movement.
Republicans are going to win some of those statewide offices. You're predicting today, October 12th, 2008.
2008, that there will be Republicans elected on the statewide ticket in 2010. I am predicting that.
Will Dan Rutherford be running, and will he be one of those people elected governor statewide in Illinois in 2010?
I would be glad to do this interview with you after we elect the next leader of the free world and be
I'm a little guy. I need a break. Make some news here today.
Help
a little guy.
Jeff, I've been around you long enough.
You're a populist. You like little guys, right?
I've been around you long enough to know that you're no little guy. You know how to play this game better than most.
All right, so you're thinking about it, and you're going to decide after the election, November 4th.
I think anyone that says today that they're running for a constitutional office in 2010 is very presumptive, and particularly when you don't even know what the lay of the land may be and who may be out there yet. So we're going to wait until after this next election, and we'll go into the spring and then make some final decisions.
Okay. Right now, Bill Brady has all but said he is running, so he's not being coy about that at all. And he's a colleague of yours in the state Senate.
Right.
You know Bill?
I know him very well.
He ran once before.
He actually was elected in that class in '92.
There you go. So
yeah.
Another new name who came in. Okay.
Yeah.
And Brady ran in 2006.
Right.
He did respectably, came in third of a 4-person race.
Now that's a primary.
In the Republican primary.
Right,
he ran in that 4-person Republican primary. He, came in third. Some would say he blew it for the Republicans because he split the conservative base. Some would say with Jim Oberweis. Topinka came in. Would you say that?
No, I don't. I mean, anybody.
You don't hold that against him that he got in there. But you're a conservative, right?
I'm a conservative. I don't hold anything against Bill, and for anyone that runs. I know Bill Brady. We were seat mates. We were district mates. We were elected in the same class in 1992 in the state house. And anybody that becomes a Monday morning quarterback to look back on past elections and say somebody blew because of this or that, I think those are inappropriate. I encourage the Bill Bradys of the world, and the Ron Gidwitzes of the world, the Steve Prestons, anyone else out there that's thinking of running. I encourage anyone that's thinking about looking to run for a constitutional office to pursue and go out there. And what they need to do right now, in my opinion, they need to raise money. They need to go out there and help rally the troops, and they need to articulate the difference between the elephants and the Democrats. That's who's going to be the strongest candidates in 2010.
Raise money for themselves or raise money for others?
Both.
What are you doing? What are you doing right now?
The Dan Rutherford Campaign Committee is raising money, and the Dan Rutherford Campaign Committee is hosting and speaking at fundraisers for candidates of the Republican Party, and the Dan Rutherford Campaign Committee is donating money to candidates that are running for county board, state house, and state senate.
So you're kind of laying the framework to have a network of people out there who may want to help you because you help them, is that right?
I don't think it's anything too dissimilar than what we've been doing for years. And I think anyone that looks at presenting themselves in a leadership opportunity wants to help elect more people around in the county board, state house, and state senate seats.
Okay, and how much have you raised so far?
You know, I'm not sure what the number raised so far, but we've closed the books of June 30th at about $270,000, which is not huge compared to the other sitting constitutional officers, but it is very good within the Republican realms right now.
You think, looking at the Democratic side,
okay,
if he's not indicted and convicted, most likely our current governor, Rod Blagojevich, would seek re-election. You agree?
I totally agree that he would run, even if he is indicted.
But not if he's convicted.
Well, if he's convicted, he
He
can't.
can't.
But if he's indicted, I don't see any reason why he would think that he shouldn't run again.
And his approval ratings even now are, what, 20% or so? You think he would run even if they stay that low?
I don't see what else he can do. I mean, I don't think he has an alternative but to run.
Can't really go back to practicing.
I don't think he can say, you know what, I've done such a great job, I'm not going to run anymore. That doesn't.
All right, so
that
Pat
doesn't play.
Quinn runs, the lieutenant governor. He may be running as an incumbent.
He could if for some reason Rod Blagojevich leaves the office. There's a number of good
Lisa
potential
Madigan, the
candidates.
Attorney General.
I think Lisa Madigan, Dan Hines, Alexi Giannoulis, Mayor Daley's brother Bill. I think that Paul Vallis is a name too that's been talked about. You know, he's down in New Orleans. He could come back. Paul would be a
He could run as an
potential.
independent, perhaps.
Perhaps.
That might be better. Reverend Meeks, would he run?
You know, I know James, and he's very passionate about
He's a
what
college
he does.
Not only is he reverend, but he's a state senator.
He is. Senator Meeks and I do serve together. A very passionate individual. I don't know that it is ability for him to pursue his cause in the strongest sense by being the governor. I think he's got a very good bully pulpit right now. He could run.
Barack Obama, somebody you knew. You were in the State House when he came in the State Senate. So you served with him in the General Assembly.
I did, in
different
fact.
houses, and then the last 2 years you were both in the Senate.
Right. In fact,
Together.
when the
Last 2 years when he was there.
when the Democratic Party took the majority in the state Senate, they moved their office suites across the hall, and I now have Barack Obama's old office. So I thought this was one of these big deals. I open the desk drawer and find the letter. You know, you leave for the guy that takes over the office when you.
No letter there?
No letter.
No advice?
Not in the desk drawer.
Okay, try to be fair here. I mean, what do you think
will.
of Barack Obama, the man? I know you're a Republican. You may want to take a shot, but for
No,
the moment,
don't-
try not
don't-
to.
you know,
what
no,
can you
don't-
tell us about the
well,
Barack Obama you knew as a state senator?
Before we set the frame it that way, I don't do that. I mean, I've been interviewed multiple times about Barack
Okay.
Obama, from National Public Radio to all of the folks, and I think it's only fair to be fair, whether it's Barack Obama or anyone else in this process. There's a couple of areas that I think that it's best that what I reflect upon with Barack Obama. One of them is, in particular, and this may sound like a small thing that some have made into a big thing on the national scene, but it does reflect somewhat. In the Illinois State Senate, we've got 3 buttons on our desk when it comes time to vote. You got a green button for yes, a red button for no, and a yellow button for present. Now, when you go and you cumulatively put together how many times somebody votes present, I think that's a statement about their process into which they make decisions. And Barack Obama was noted, and now statistically shown, was a present vote, you know, well over 140 times. Now
I think
you're
it was
talking.
I think it was 130, but I'm not.
Well, all right.
Okay.
So it
130
depends.
out of 5,000 votes, I think.
Well, you know what? Here's a state senator who's now served for 16 years.
How many votes?
0.
Zero
So
present votes?
zero present votes in the Illinois State Senate or the Illinois State House. So my point is
0 present votes you've got.
that's what I said. 0 present votes in the State House and the State Senate. And so when you have someone say, well, 140 votes is voting present out of 5,000, whatever the number may be, is negligible. You know what, though? It's because you're not making a decision when the time comes as to whether you're yes or no.
He claims,
I think that's an
he claims
indication
it was
of
a
some
matter of a
concern.
strategy, that there are things where you're trying to bring people over, you can't maybe get them to vote no, so you can show them vote present as I'm doing, and it's
Sure.
equivalent to a no. That's right, a present is equivalent to a no vote.
It's a response that needs to be prepared
So do you
for the
think he
national
was doing
stage
that?
now.
That's what the claim is made. It wasn't just that he was undecided. He was part of a team trying to put together more no votes the way to do that, get others to vote present like you. I've heard that. Number one, have you heard that? And two, do you give that any credence?
I've heard that, and in my opinion, that becomes an excuse.
Do you think he's truly undecisive? Is that true?
I think that he at those times,
Indecisive.
at those times when that board lights up and you're to make a decision, I think it's taken the path of least resistance. When you get issues up there, it is not easy. It is not easy if people don't agree with you, and to be in a leadership role, and especially in the General Assembly, where you need to go back at home or get the hot searing spotlights of a TV camera shining on you to respond.
And yet he's just persuaded the Democratic voters in the Democratic primary that he's the guy over somebody who most would agree was a formidable candidate, Hillary Clinton.
Sure, and he's done that before.
How did he do that? How did he do that?
I think
if he's got that drawback that you mentioned, yet people looked to him and said, "We're going to make you our
No, I
leader."
didn't say it was a drawback. You asked me.
You don't think it's a drawback?
No, what you asked me was to comment on how he did in the Illinois State Senate. And that's what I commented.
You don't,
to
but
you about.
it sounded like
Here,
a
but no,
drawback.
let me ask you. Let me answer the question that you left me with
I know
last
drawbacks.
time.
When I hear a
And then when
drawback, it
you
sounds
talk
like a
about how
drawback.
did he do it, I think what Barack Obama did to win the Democratic primary over who I thought was going to be the slam dunk winner, and she didn't do it, was the fact on his packaging. The guy is masterful at packaging. He's brought in extremely good talent. David Axelrod is some of the best, and perhaps now may well be one of the nation's best at packaging. And I think he can articulate, he can present himself, and the American public today, in part because of electronic media and because of blogs and the internet, I think you look at candidates differently today than you did in the 1960s. And I think that's a part of what Barack Obama's strength has been, and I think that's in part how he's gone this far.
Very well-spoken guy, right? You would agree?
I would agree.
On style. You don't have to agree with the views, but in terms of his ability to project the message, that's well-spoken.
He is well-spoken.
Number two, a very smart guy.
I would say he's a very smart guy, yes.
Knows the issues. On this show, he said in 2002, as he was starting to run for the U.S. Senate, in 2003, to distinguish himself from his competitors in the Democratic primary, he said he had a clear vision, he knows the issues, he speaks up. Seems like three basic things, and yet he thought that distinguished him from a seven-candidate field. Do you agree?
All except the latter part, where it talks about he speaks up.
You don't think he did?
I don't think he did.
He spoke out about the war in October of 2002.
Let me. No, I don't think. Yeah, but he didn't speak out about Tony Rezko, and he didn't speak out about Rod Blagojevich. He didn't speak out about the dysfunction of process that's going on. He didn't speak out about getting a capital bill where the federal government has got money waiting to have the state come into it. So, speaking out on certain things are all right, but if you're talking about speaking out in regards to leadership within your own state, he hasn't done that.
Reform. He's been bad at bringing about reform in the Democratic Party. As you mentioned about Rezko, he was close to Rezko. Of course, we should know that was before he was indicted, and before perhaps even he did involve himself in a house purchase when he was under investigation. He said that was boneheaded, but most of what he was doing with Rezko, say in 2004 or going back to 91 when he met him, was what many people were doing things with Rezko, Republican and Democrat. And although he was a wheeler dealer, I don't know that you could say people should know or would have known that he would be indicted and so forth.
I would agree.
You would agree to that?
Sure.
And Kirk Dillard, your friend. I don't know if he's your friend, but he's your colleague in the state Senate.
He is my friend.
Is he your friend?
He is my
friend. As you know, he allowed his name to be used, and he allowed himself to be used in a film. He would not call it an endorsement. Others might, but it was used in the Democratic caucuses, used by Barack Obama to show to the Democratic voters in their primary that Barack Obama, is somebody who reached across the aisle, worked effectively. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially that's what Kirk Dillard said. You differ with Kirk on what he said? I'm sure you've seen that.
Oh, I've seen it. I would not have done the ad.
You would not have done it, but do you disagree with what Kirk said about Barack Obama?
I go back and I would not have done the ad because I think you present it in a level that may be in difference than reality, and I would not have done the ad.
All right. Look, we'll come. Just one thing, that is an important point. Because
sure
you made
enough.
that issue of reform. And I just clarify
No,
that.
no. The issue was speaking out.
Speaking out.
That's you said there were three things
that. Rezko.
No, I didn't just say Rezko though, Jeff. I said the whole idea in regards to speaking out with regards to the problems that have taken place in the state of Illinois, and particularly under this Democratic governor. He has served in the United States Senate when this man was the governor, and there has not been this speak out. You talked about the three things he said. He has not done that. And that is, in my opinion, if you are a leader and you're a national leader, you should speak out.
You mean as a U.S. Senator, he should take on, even though it's a state issue, what Rod Blagojevich is doing or not doing, what Mayor Daley is doing or not doing, which is a city issue. You're saying Barack Obama should have spoken out on those issues as a U.S. Senator.
Sure. Dick Durbin is.
Now
Absolutely.
he is. Now he is.
Sure. But here, but the point.
When should he?
But
When should
but
Barack
is
have done
not.
that? When should Barack have done
When
that?
it became a problem, or when he thought he should inject himself in regards to leadership. Barack has injected himself here. I mean, you go back and you look at this whole recall vote that his colleague, Senator Emil Jones, was going to refuse to call, even though the House, Democratic-controlled
The
House,
ethics bill, not the recall.
No,
the ethics bill.
I'm sorry. The ethics bill. The ethics bill.
He got
Thank
Emil
you.
Jones to raise that.
He called. Yeah, he picked up the phone and he called to do that. So don't. There is the process into which he sees he can inject
A man
himself.
can only do so much. Could he turn around? Look, Mayor Daley has not been convicted of anything. People talk about
Mayor
Obama.
Daley?
Yeah, he hasn't been convicted of anything, has he?
No.
So should he have done something? People say, John Cass, Tribune columnist, says Obama is a product of the Daley machine. One, is that fair? And two,
I don't know.
But could he do
I don't know.
anything about the Daily machine? Is that what you mean?
No,
should he
no,
be speaking
no,
out
no.
against
And I don't
Daily
want
machine?
to. I'm not
All right,
even going
okay.
to comment on John
Okay.
Cass's columns. I mean, John.
Okay.
John is also someone I know.
You're
that
saying he
doesn't
should have. You're saying Barack Obama should have spoken out more about Illinois than he
What
did.
I'm saying is, you gave me 3 things he said in 2003 that he gave as part of
Fair
his
enough.
strength, and one of those, the latter, was one that I said I don't think he has done. You asked me to comment on that. I don't think he did.
All right. Senate President, not right now, Emil Jones?
I could be, but my party doesn't have the majority right now.
So it's now being fought out among the Democrats. Sounds like John Cullerton is somebody, sounds like Senator Claiborne, right?
I would say that in the short list today, in Emil Jones's departure, those would be the 2 that are probably the highest talked about individuals. I think there's a couple of other people that could be potentially consensus candidates.
Which would be?
I think Don Harmon could be a consensus candidate. I think Senator Schoenberg could be a consensus candidate. There could be a few others, but the top discussions today are Cullerton and Claiborne.
And if you were a betting man, how to put your money on, who would you bet would be the Democratic Senate President?
I don't bet.
The Senate President.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
bet, and I don't judge pie contests or beauty contests either.
All right. As we sit here and look at the state legislative, globe of issues as of October 12, 2008, where are we on a capital plan? I mean, do we have a capital plan?
Capital plan, just for the benefit of our viewers here, is the means in which the legislature uses bond indebtedness to build, buy, and pay for brick and mortar and road programs. We have not had a capital bill, brick and mortar program since Rod Blagojevich has been the governor.
All right. Do we have something now? Is there a
No.
proposal?
Oh, there's a proposal. Of course there's a proposal.
Have we
There's
decided
multiple
have we
proposals.
decided to lease the lottery?
It depends on who the "we" is. When
Has
you
the
say
state
have-
legislature decided that?
The
Have you passed a
legislature
bill?
has not passed, both chambers, a bill to lease the state lottery.
The Senate has.
I believe if it did, I know I voted no. I don't know if it actually came to a floor vote or was in a committee vote, but the General Assembly has not. Both chambers have not passed the leasing of the state lottery.
Speaker Mike said that he would like to see a lease of the lottery.
My understanding is within the past few months he has said that he would look to do that.
Okay. See, I thought the Senate actually had passed that, but you're saying
No,
they
no,
haven't.
I didn't say that. No, I didn't say they didn't. I said I don't recall that
You don't
we
recall,
did.
but you
and
might have.
I
voted
I
no.
know that I voted no, and I don't know if it was on the floor or was in a
You
committee.
know, I thought where it stood is the House had, but I thought there had been no indication of capital projects. That is, how this money would be spent when it actually
Well, see,
when the lease occurs.
That's a part of the whole problem. I mean, the leasing of the lottery is one means. I mean, the 2 things you have to pass a capital bill, one of them is revenue to pay for it, and the other from the standpoint is how you're going to spend it.
And the lease of the lottery would give you the revenue. How much does it give you?
Well, but there's other people that would want to have the lease of the lottery for other purposes.
Revenue.
I mean,
But if you wanted to use it for that, you could do that. And in fact, even taking out money and setting it in a trust for so-called education, because they get money, education gets money now
right.
from the lottery. So if you protect that, you could then take that lump sum and you could use that for a capital plan. I think Representative Hamos has said this on this show recently, that would be her preference, just use that money, match it up with federal funds, and I think you're talking about total about a $15 billion capital plan.
And that's one
How does
way.
that sound to you? How does that sound to
That's
you?
one way to. Well, no. Go back to the original question you're asking about leasing the lottery. I do not support leasing the lottery. And you go back, and there's other people that do support the leasing the lottery that think of another way to spend it. Senator Meeks is one who has a different way.
Okay, so
to spend
how
that
would you
money.
finance a capital plan, which it sounds like you favor?
I favor a capital plan, and I am one who has never signed a pledge that says I'm not going to vote for a tax increase, I'm not going to vote for a fee increase. I am one who has voted for the last capital bill and did raise fees to be able to pay for it. And here's the difference between, I think, that point then and where we're at today. The debt, when you go out and you raise fees, the fees unto which they're raised have to be spent for that purpose. We've seen this administration and this General Assembly go out and raise fees and not use it for the purposes into which they were raised. And we see that right now where they did the fund sweep. There was a $220 million fund sweep as well.
What specifically would you use to finance the capital plan that you favor?
I would look at new revenues to pay for it.
And which new revenues would you?
Potentially certain types of fees.
Fees. You think you could do it just on fees alone? No.
That's how we've done it before. That's how other capital bills have passed years ago.
Illinois First was essentially out of that.
Illinois First
but
was
there was
the
a
last
lot of
capital
borrowing. There was a lot of borrowing, and you were using those fees.
They're
using the fees to finance the borrowing.
Bonding is borrowing.
Right, but you use
that
the fees.
is borrowing.
Right, you use the fees to finance the bonds, right?
That's what the program is. It's like mortgaging.
Hamos is suggesting another way. Just use the money. Don't borrow. Use the money that you have from the lease of the lottery, that lump sum thing, and actually use that to pay for the capital.
You can't build a 20-year asset with present value, with present cash.
You can't. Well, you could put it in an annuity, or either various things you could do.
Yeah, but you can't go out and see. The reason you call it capital is just like mortgaging a house. You don't go out and pay the total cash down for your house unless you're very wealthy.
You could.
If you're like
Ron
Jeff Berkowitz.
Ron Goodwitz.
Jeff Berkowitz could perhaps, but Dan Rutherford.
Dan Rutherford.
No,
sure you can. All those 18 years as service master.
I've got.
You can do that?
I've got to make sure I've got a good plan on how to pay for it.
All right. Would you favor possibly an increase in the income tax in 2009?
For what?
For anything. For the capital plan, for education.
That's the.
Well, look, all these things.
Ralph Martelli. Here, let me finish answering your question. That's the trick question that people say. Would you support raising the income tax? I told you, I have never signed a statement saying that I would not vote for something like that. But I'm not about to do it until you tell me what it's going to go for. I'm not ready to give a blank check to anybody.
Tell you in a minute. Well, you can just sign your name and just write it out to Jeff Berkowitz. We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll, but I very much want to thank our guest, State Senator Dan Rutherford. Thank you so much for coming.
It's good to be on the air with you.
Thank you. Come back and tell us more because we didn't cover all the topics we'd like to.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Dan Rutherford is a state senator. You're running. You're up for re-election?
I am on the ballot.
No opponent?
I have no opponent, and I will be reelected for a 4-year term.
All right. You may be looking at a candidate for governor in 2010. We'll find out more about it. You will come back on Public Affairs and announce right here what you're going to do?
I would look forward to be back on your show.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, so really getting to the nub of the issue.
Sure.
Okay, that people are talking about the great needs of the state of Illinois, whether it's for a capital plan, whether it's for expanded funding on education, I don't know what. And so you certainly hear a number of Democrats say this, maybe some Republicans. We have great needs, we have to get revenue to match that. What you're saying is before you'd even think about raising taxes or raising revenue, you want to know how it's going to be used.
Absolutely, I think it's a very logical process.
Are there any great needs that you see? Do you think we can get by with the things that you think need to be done, capital plan or otherwise, with the current revenue? Or are there things that you think need to be done and you would consider raising new revenue for that?
You break apart a budget in 2 areas. One of them is in regards to the capital plan, which is bond. I don't think we can do a bond authorization plan without additional revenue source. The other side is the expenses side, the operations of state government. I think that's an area where right now, what we've done in the last few years, this General Assembly has gone and expanded to brand new programs when we don't have the money to pay for it. And we've seen the ideas, the family care program that the governor put into place and had people sign up on the pharmaceutical programs. I serve on the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules that turned that down twice. Okay. The legislature turned it down, and now he's gone out and created this program. We don't have money to pay for it.
Do we need more money for education in the state of Illinois?
I think we can look at what we have today and find of revenue better ways to use what we've got coming in the door.
Do we need more for healthcare or healthcare insurance? Or
I don't think we do right now. I think we need to look at a better way to package what we got.
So pretty much you're of the view we can handle whatever you need to do or the General Assembly